Hello YouTube, this is Frank from Happy Coder. Today I'd like to talk to you about how to use AutoHotKey or AHK as a text expander. And what I mean by text expander is that it allows you to input a predefined keyboard shortcut or a key phrase, and it's going to automatically expand the short key phrase into a predefined longer output. And let's just do a very brief demonstration of what I meant by that. So in my script, I've already defined two key phrases. And the first one is going to output a date in the form of YYYYMMD. So if we do DDATE, which is my predefined short key phrase, and after that, when you hit any special punctuation or the space key, it's going to automatically expand the DDATE into the ISO form of the date. And the other thing is, I have also defined a key phrase called FBM. When I input that, it's going to automatically expand that to my email address. And you can imagine using this kind of technique, this kind of text expansion is going to save you a lot of time along the road. And before we get into that, I just want to give you some context regarding how I discovered this Windows-specific scripting language called AutoHotKey. And for the longest time, I've been using some other text expansion software. On the Windows platform, I've been using Phrase Express, which is a freemium product, meaning you can get limited functionality if you're a free user, and you get some other additional functionalities if you're a premium paid user. And on the macOS platform, I've been using another software called aText. And I would like to introduce you to a website called alternative2.net. And this website is amazing if you want to find some alternative to some of the softwares that you're thinking about replacing. So Phrase Express is the one that I've been using for my Windows machine and on my Macs. And on the Mac side, because I got into the game fairly early, I've been using an older piece of software called aText. However, I've been having some problem with Phrase Express. I wasn't really impressed with what it had been offering me. So as I was looking for alternatives for this software, I was also looking at Espenso, which is open source, cross-platform. And the next thing that got my attention was this AutoHotKey. What captured my attention was that it's not really a software per se, but rather a Windows-specific scripting language that not only allows you to do text expansion, but you can also potentially do a lot of macros and really use this alongside your CLI skills to really automate a lot of things. However, the scope of today's video is really just to give you a taste of how you can use AutoHotKey as a text expander, rather than giving you a holistic view of all the amazing capabilities that this scripting language is capable of doing. So first thing first, we need to install AutoHotKey to our local machine. And to install it, you can either go to the official website, which is AutoHotKey.com, or my preferred method of installing AutoHotKey would be to use the chocolatey package manager for Windows. And in the notification card, I'll be linking a video to which I've been talking about the chocolatey package management tool. And if you have chocolatey already installed, you can run choco search AutoHotKey to make sure that they do support AutoHotKey in their repository. I've already got AutoHotKey installed, so let's just delve into how to write our own scripts and do some text expansion. If we open up our desktop folder within a text editor, we can first of all create a new AFK script file. Let's call it test, and it has to have a extension name called AHK, which stands for AutoHotKey. And to get the support for the syntax that is correlated with AutoHotKey, you can go to the extension market and search for the relevant plugins that gives you syntax support for AutoHotKey. And I've already got that installed, so let's just focus on the text editing area by closing up the sidebar. Once you've got AutoHotKey installed on your machine, you can very easily just look up the documentations that have already been installed to your machine locally, and it has a lot of support for all the syntaxes, all the keyword and operators. And I would say that comparing to working with the text expansion software GUI, the GUIs, I would prefer to operate on a deeper level, meaning to work with the actual scripting language and define all my definitions in the scripting file rather than relying on the graphical user interface. So the way that you're going to substitute a predefined key phrase and expand that into a current date with a certain format is that you're going to define your keyboard shortcut first. So let's say that we want to use Control D as our keyboard shortcut. So we're going to write $D, and in the environment of AutoHotKey, Control key is mapped to this caret symbol. And after that, you're going to use a double colon to separate your keyboard shortcut with the thing that you want to expand into. So right here, we're going to use the format time method that comes with AutoHotKey. And you can see that this VS Code AHK plugin is prompting us with the required arguments for this method. So for the name of our output variable name, let's call it current datetime. And this optional parameter is going to be the time input in this format. But because we want to just capture the current time, which is now the current timestamp, we can omit it. And for the format, let's say that we want the ISO format of the date, which is YYYY, capital M, and the date. And lastly, we can just use the send input method and output the current date time variable name that we already defined. But make sure to wrap it in a pair of percentage symbols. And lastly, we're going to do a return statement, which is recommended if in a single scripting file you have multiple different method definitions. So now after we have saved our script, we're going to double click to run it. And now if we go to any text input area, if we do Control D, we can see that it has been replaced by the longer form of the string output that we have defined. And now let's try to modify the script a little bit. Let's say that we don't want to use this keyboard shortcut, but instead we want it to be a shorter phrase. So let's say that we want the shorter key phrase to be fdate, which stands for formatted date. And we can effectively delete the keyboard shortcut. And by the same token, after the two colons, these things are going to be the output that is going to replace this shorter form of the key phrase. Now that we're going to save the script file, run it again by double clicking on it. And then go to Firefox. If we do fdate, you can see that same thing again. It's substituting the shorter key phrase that we have already defined, which is fdate, and replacing it with the longer form of the ISO date string that we have defined in the scripting file. And now let's take a look at how to expand a shorter string into a longer string, which you would say that is simpler than working with the datetime formatting method that comes with AHK. So the same concept applies. We would want to define the shorter phrase that we want to expand within a pair of double colons. So let's say that we want to expand the phrase into the happy coder, which is the name of this channel. And we're going to define our shorter key phrase within this double colons. So let's make it into HPC, which stands for Happy Coder. And let's not forget to make a return at the very end of this definition. We're going to save it and double click on the script to execute it. And now anytime if we type HPC, you can see that it's going to expand it into Happy Coder. And the last thing that we're going to take a look at is to tell our Windows machine to execute the script first thing when it starts up, every time we power up the machine. And the method of going about doing that is to store the script file into the startup folder of the operating system. And we can get to that folder by hitting Windows key and R. And inside of the prompt, we're going to enter shell:startup. And when we hit enter, it's going to open up the startup folder for us. You can see that in the startup folder, I've already predefined a main.ahk script. And as long as you put your script file in here, anytime when you open up your computers, it's going to execute the script, and any definition you have stored in the script file is going to be executed, so you can safely expand them into the predefined longer versions. So that's all I have to say in today's video. I hope you found it to be informative, and I'll see all of you in next week's video. Bye bye.